welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. I trust the week's gone well and you've got some great plans for the weekend. I'm certainly busy, but looking forward to it. My macro thoughts start with Nanex LLC. I love his pictorials. They tell you so much about the markets. May 20th, he tweeted the relationship between price, volume and liquidity. And this was the diagram. Home thoughts. Since my episode when I was interdicted for using my phone at 5 kilometers per hour in heavy traffic, and then discovered my driving license had expired, and remember this happened over the space of about 2 hours, and I'm writing about it as if it was a very calm and tranquil experience, but it certainly wasn't. I discovered the driving license had expired, and my then visit to Parkland's police station. The dear wife has been driving me around, worried I might get arrested otherwise. And this morning, as she dropped me off, I turned to Hannah, and I said to Hannah, look, I want a commendation goodbye kiss this morning, darling. And she has this kind of skeptical face, as if she has grown up and I haven't. But I could still blow that look out of the water. We were in the downstairs car park at about 5 to 7 in the morning, and I started shouting. And the wife and the daughters say I can be loud, and I started going, wow, like Al Pacino. I can't remember that movie when he was so happy. I said, that's the best guess. Did you know Hannah got a commendation? She sort of slid down the chair and vanished. She knew that I was a very serious individual and never to be denied, ever. Her mother was still a little cross with me for getting her all dressed up, thinking it was the Swedish National Day. When we got there yesterday evening to His Excellency Johan Borgstam's house, it was so quiet, it was sort of bleak house, or Dickensian even. Then, still cross with me for not knowing my dates, I said, just stop over here, I'm getting a takeaway. Would you like to come in? I said to her. She was angry. She said, no, I'll wait in the car. And I went in, ordered myself a Corona beer. Don't tell Charles Island. He tends to be quite proprietorial about that kind of thing. And ordered the takeaway, and 20 minutes later proceeded with the takeaway in hand. And on that note, I'll put up a photograph of Hannah and her mother riding along the lake shore at Lake Taita. Two other photographs which I liked. Kenya pics picked up on Sam Dave's Describe Kenya in 5 words, and it's a photograph of Nairobi. We're trying to get ourselves up the UAP. They're building the biggest building in Nairobi one early morning or late evening. Take some photographs from there. He's a great photographer. And I like this one from Kenya pics as well, Mara Sundown. And I haven't been there for an eternity, and I really would like to go back. Ngugi wa Thiongo, who said this, our lives are a battlefield on which is fought a continuous war between the forces that are pledged to confirm our humanity and those determined to dismantle it, those who strive to build a protective wall around it and those who wish to pull it down, those who seek to mold it and those committed to breaking it up. Those who aim to open our eyes, to make us see the light and look to tomorrow, and those who wish to lull us into closing our eyes. Powerful stuff from Ngugi. Political reflections. Fire seen from the Noku mountain after it was hit by an airstrike in Yemen's capital, Sana'a. And I really don't understand what the Saudi Arabians are trying to achieve with the Yemen. And in order for them to achieve anything, it's going to require them putting boots on the ground, and that of itself is such a bad idea. And then Eldram El Rai, I follow on Twitter, came across and said a photo exchanged by ISIS, not official, claiming to be the doors of the Palmyra jail, opened today by ISIS. Islamic State is saying it's in full control of Syria's Palmyra, tightened their grip on the historic city of Palmyra on Thursday, and overran Iraqi government defenses east of Ramadi, the provincial capital that they seized 5 days earlier. And a huge amount of pressure being brought to bear on Damascus and on Baghdad. I concluded by saying, a bunch of hirsute barbarians crossing the desert in plain sight and not one airstrike interdicts them. Pretty extraordinary, isn't it? UNESCO tweeted, "We call for an immediate end to hostilities in Palmyra." Took me back to Zig Brzezinski's 3 grand imperatives of imperial geostrategy, the third of which is to keep the barbarians from coming together. The 3 grand imperatives of imperial geostrategy are to prevent collusion and maintain security dependence amongst the vassals, to keep tributaries pliant and protected, and to keep the barbarians from coming together. Well, in this regard, and Brzezinski is advisor to the president, I wish they'd listened to that third component. Monica Hanna tweeted, "Palmyra, stop its destruction." Lovely photograph. Nassim Nicholas Talib has got a very interesting piece of research out, fiendishly complicated as it would be, so I've not been able to skim over it this morning, but I'll just the headline is on the tail risk of violent conflict and its underestimation. We examine all possible statistical pictures of violent conflicts over common era history with a focus on dealing with incompleteness and unreliability of data. We apply methods from extreme value theory on log transform data to remove compact support, then owing to the boundedness of maximum casualties, retransform the data and derive expected means. We find the estimated mean likely to be at least 3 times larger than the sample mean, meaning severe underestimation of the severity of conflicts from naive observation. We check for robustness by sampling between high and low estimates and jackknifing the data. We study inter-arrival times between tail events and find first-order memory-lessness of events. The statistical pictures obtained are at variance with the claims about the long piece. I'm going to go and read it, and then I was on his Twitter handle when I saw this, and this is what he tweeted. "Copy editing is similar to plastic surgery. Unless one has serious damage, the natural, when moderately imperfect, prevails aesthetically." Can't agree with them more, actually. China says US actions in the South China Sea are irresponsible and dangerous. China said on Friday actions by the US in the South China Sea were irresponsible and dangerous, and called on it to stop after it vowed to keep up air and sea patrols in international waters. China was strongly dissatisfied with US military overflights, said Foreign Ministry spokesman Hung Lei. And I said, the pivot to Asia, now that it's not worrying about Kiev, is baring its fangs again. Currency markets, the euro is at 111.63, the dollar index is around the 95 level, Japanese yen 120.79, and midweek the dollar reached 121.49. The Swissy, when I looked last, was 0.9351, the pound 156.57. Aussie around the 0.7903 level, Indian rupee 63.615. South Korean won 1089.99, Rial 304.3, Egyptian pound 763.01, and the rand is at 1180.69. Dollar index, I'll put up a 6-month chart. We're in a couple of, the dollar's a little bit soft right now, but I expect it to reassert in due course. Euro dollar, 111.62. It's been all over the place, hasn't it? Big profit-taking trend came in over the last few sessions. Hit a 3-week low of 110.62 earlier this week, and we're now a full figure above that. Overall, euro advanced, helped trim the dollar's first gain in 6 weeks. European bonds have climbed. Chinese shares heading for their biggest weekly gain since November. And oil as well, biggest weekly sequence of gains since Bloomberg started counting, which was in 1983. Shanghai Composite Index extended the week's gain to 7.6%. S&P eked out a 0.1% gain to close at a fresh record. Lots of people talking. Janet Yellen speaking on the economy today. US CPI is expected. So there's plenty going on. Boris Nikolai well, I'll just say what his Twitter handle is, Sagaron62, tweeted German Bund, doing okay so far this morning. And of course, there's been this enormous correlation between the Bund and the euro. So just bear that in mind. I like this. The mint-coloured South Side is made with 2 ounces of Knickerbocker gin, 1 ounce of lime juice, and 1.5 ounces of mint simple syrup. The cherry-coloured Blood and Sand is a mix of 10 ounces of Dewar's Scotch, 10 ounces of Cherry Heering, 10 ounces of Noy Prat sweet vermouth, and 10 ounces of blood orange juice. Each is served in aged vintage coupe glasses. I found it good, didn't it? Gold, we're at 1212.47. I'll put up a 6-month chart. Crude oil, now this is extraordinary to have this enormous week-on-week rally. It's rallied 11 weeks in a row. We're now at 60.50, and it could very well get squeezed higher just to take everybody out. But I think ultimately it's going to 50. I don't think it can get squeezed as high as 67. They could set a new 2015 high quite easily. Longest winning streak since records began in 1983. Jamie at Reuters, perfectly rational and normal Chinese stocks up 45% in barely over a month. And I'll put up his tweet. The Real is at 304.1 or 304.15. Dilma Rousseff, so unpopular. Lots of issues in the Brazilian economy which have not been resolved in my view. I think there's a real risk there of a massive currency fallout. Coming to Africa, President Nkurunziza was playing football apparently as protesters in Burundi continue to voice their anger against the government in the wake of an attempted coup. The president has been photographed playing football with his friends. The protesters were killed and 13 people were injured on Thursday. 2 protesters were killed on Thursday, 13 injured. The presidency tweeted La nouvelle équipe gouvernementale du Burundi, the new team in charge of Burundi, I suppose. I'll put up that image as well. The Belgian Foreign Ministry said a third term would deal a serious blow to the legitimacy of the Burundian government. That's pretty aggressive. And added that in such a case it would review its aid to focus on strengthening democratic forces in the country. Belgium's development aid for Burundi in 2013 was just under 50 million euros, most of it going directly to the state, so it's going to be felt, definitely. He never travels without his own football team and a choir. This is President Nkurunziza. The 10 most corrupt countries in Africa were as follows: 10 Uganda, 9 Equatorial Guinea, Angola 8, Cameroon 7, Mozambique 6, Zimbabwe 5, Libya 4, Kenya 3, Liberia 2, Sierra Leone 1. The South African all-share is up 10.26% year-to-date, 1.929% below a record high set on the 24th of April this year. Stanlib is calling it a very stretched market, never been more expensive to their emerging market peers, making cash a better investment choice for the country's third largest money manager. It's up over 10% year-to-date, pushing the gauge to 17 times estimated earnings, and increasing the spread over the MSCI Emerging Market Index to the highest on record. They're saying gains for 2015 are over. On that note, the South African note, let me put up a photograph of some Jaguars that we got to drive around Kyalami racetrack in Johannesburg. And we had a mighty fine time as well. Dollar Rand, last time I looked, 1180.69. Put up a 6-month chart. Egyptian pound is at 763.01. Egyptian stock market is up 1.94% so far this year, but it has rallied 8.813% since the 17th of May in announcing a capital gains tax delay. Nigerian all shares up 2.51% year to date. Nigerian consumer stocks are struggling through a lost year as a slump in oil prices buffets Africa's largest economy. This is Renaissance Capital. Fuel shortages are making it harder to distribute goods as companies including Guinness Nigeria plc, Nestle Nigeria and Unilever Nigeria plc grapple with a slowing economy and weaker local currency, said Benjamin Samuels. Investors are shunning the country's banks until there's more clarity on how they're responding to the risk of higher defaults because of lower crude prices, he said. Some see 2015 as a lost year for growth in margins and consumer stocks, he said in an interview in Lagos. The cost of imports has gone through the roof with the decline of the Naira. Companies are facing challenges around distribution and weaker sales. Growth slowed to 4% in the first quarter from 5.9% in the last 3 months of 2014. The Naira has depreciated 18% against the dollar over the past 12 months. Long queues for fuel. Government guarantees cheaper fuel by subsidizing gasoline, but it's struggling to pay the marketeers the difference between the landing price of oil and the fixed domestic rate as low crude prices deplete revenue. And saying foreign exchange liquidity does have to improve for equity investors to get more comfortable. Once we see the new cabinet, oil rallying off a low point and stable currency, liquidity can pick up significantly. Hopefully well above the current $25 million a month at the moment, which is a day, which is tiny. In the same article, they do mention that the Tanzanian stock market has rallied 52% in the past 12 months, and that is the best performing stock market in Africa. Liquidity is improving in Tanzania, he said. Investors are going in. Ghana's stock exchange is up 4.11% so far this year. Kenya's security forces on Thursday evening thwarted a terrorist attack by Al-Shabaab militants targeting Yumbis village in Ijara, Garissa County. The Interior Ministry said that villagers alerted security forces that they had spotted armed militants in the area around 6 p.m. Security forces swiftly mobilized, engaged the militants in gun battle. No casualties were reported, says the Interior Ministry spokesperson, Mr. Mwenda Njoka. Inspector General of Police, Mr. Joseph Boynet, said the Al-Shabaab militants were harassing locals but were repulsed by security personnel. Security forces last night ambushed an Al-Shabaab mob found harassing locals for food and water. Attempted incursion repulsed. Security, in my opinion, remains the Achilles heel. And this reported slightly differently in the BBC. Kenyan mosque in Garissa briefly taken over by Al-Shabaab militants from the Islamist group, briefly took over a mosque in northern Kenya. Jihadists are said to have addressed the congregation for 2 hours before escaping into a forest. They criticized Kenyan authorities and warned people not to pass intelligence to the security forces. The mosque is in Garissa County. Caleb Matoke told the Standard newspaper that 25 fighters were involved. He said he believed they were sent by Mohammed Kuno. One resident told the BBC militants came to Hulugo town and proceeded to the mosque where they gathered people and started giving out sermons. They said they are also Muslims and they are only targeting government officials whom they have a problem with. The central bank, as I've said previously, is in quite a delicate position with regard to the shilling. The shilling was last trading above 97 at a multi-year low. The Nairobi All Share, which is up now just 2.203% in 2015, has actually fallen 6.213% since closing at a record on February the 25th, 2015. NSE 20, which is down 3.599% in 2015, has retreated 570.73 points and 10.3775% since closing at a multi-year high on the 2nd of March this year. Kengen's won an Africa Renewable Energy Award, and this is what Albert said. Albert Mugo is the MD. Kengen is proud to be on the lead in moving the country towards self-sufficiency and providing reliable, affordable and renewable energy. Kengen share price is at $9.55. Price earnings ratio is 7.4. It's a cheap stock. Once again, I'm grateful that you stopped by. I wish you a wonderful weekend.